All right, welcome. I'm Andrew, your host, joined as well by Pastor Robert.
Good to see you.
And then our ministry partner and special guest, Mr. Dan Portugal, missionary to Spain.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the ForYou Podcast, where we share inspiring stories, navigate life and culture, and highlight church moments. Tune in for uplifting conversations and celebrations of faith, one story at a time.
All right, so let's start with the obvious question that you get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Portugal, missionary to Spain.
Yes.
At any point, did you ever consider, instead of being a missionary to Spain, being a missionary to, wait for it, Portugal?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't think I've considered that, even though my last name is Portugal, but I've never been to Portugal. I know that somewhere in the past, I have some Portuguese background, but since I've never been to Portugal, I didn't grow up there. I don't speak Portuguese. Actually, that's an interesting question.
Have you never been asked that before?
Never asked myself that before.
Andrew and I have
Maybe I should ask myself that now.
Andrew and I have asked that question a lot. Like as we were preparing, we kept asking ourselves, like,
Because everyone was confused. Oh, Portugal's, they're missionaries to Portugal, right? No. Spain.
Yes.
Now, Dan, how long have you been over in Spain and doing mission work over there?
We've been there with my family for 17 years.
And my understanding, because I haven't been at fellowship that as long,
Right.
we're one of your original supporting churches, correct?
Yes, you are. You've been with us for, I dare to say, 20 years probably.
Wow. Do you know how that came to be or anything, or no?
Yes, I do remember that. Long story short, one of the missionaries that discipled me, Leroy Kenny, when he was retiring and I was beginning to raise our support and go around churches to partner with, he just came around and said, you know, I have churches that support me that I would like to connect you with. And would you be willing to be connected with, fellowship? And so that's the way we were connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So all through Leroy Kenny.
Yes.
And I believe we support his son as well.
Yes.
And then you guys. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so Pastor Ron was probably the pastor here. at the
Yes, he
time.
was. Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
So now what changes have you seen? Because some people who listen to our podcast, they might not be familiar with how missionaries go about getting support and funding.
Right.
What's the general process that, say, a new missionary has to get funding, or from your experience, what's that process like?
Oh boy, that's a short question for a long answer. But to make it short, well, first of all, the process is, from the missionary's point of view, you need to make sure that where you're going is where you really believe God wants you there.
Okay.
And why. So that you have to, of course, settle that in your heart. And the first thing you need to do also is to partner with a church that is going to become your home church. In other words, elders that really know you and that you're going to be also under their leadership. So that's one big step.
Okay.
And of course, I can see the wisdom of that. And then next to that, some people go on, by themselves, lonesome, so to speak. But obviously, wisdom also tells us that seeking a missionary agency is the way to go for accountability, for support, for resources. And so next you would be looking for a missionary agency. And then after that, then you're ready to go and seek partners.
Okay.
And so that's when you begin contacting. From my own experience, I think that although times are changing, but partnering with churches seems to be a more solid foundation because, churches do change, but they don't change that much as individuals or families. And so then you go out and, of course, then you start presenting yourself, introducing yourself as to who you are, what you want to do, your passion.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, you connect with individuals too. And that may be in your neighborhood or churches that you have gone to, people that are more interested in what you're doing. And so that's the way you go about. I don't know if that answers the question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now, approximately how many different churches support you?
To be exact, at this time, we have 15 churches.
15.
15 churches that support us.
So now, what is the rhythm that you have? Because growing up, you'd always have missionaries that go into the field. You almost think about it like if it's a 4-year cycle, they go there for 4 years and then come home for a year.
Right.
I think it's called furlough is the term that they use.
Yes.
Is that still common parlance? Is that still a common practice?
Well, I think every mission agency has their policies, and of course, your home church too comes into play. But in our mission agency, there is not a rule. There is maybe what do you call that?
A guideline, a preference?
Guideline, a preference.
Kind of like parlay.
Yeah, guideline,
Savvy.
no more than 4 years out on the field,
Okay.
But times change, flights are cheaper and distances because of all the, flying is basically getting shortened. And so some people do furlough every year.
Really?
Just come for like 2 months and visit some churches here. The next year, come for 2 months. The next year, come 2 months. And so that's what people do sometimes. I haven't done that. We haven't done that because I think that personally, I think I'd be too disconnected from the field.
Okay.
And so my preference is to do it like every 3 or 4 years. And that's what we've done. This last time has been 5 years because of various changes in our home. Our kids are getting older, going to college. COVID also had a way of messing things up. And so this time we were out there 5 years actually. So.
Gotcha. So now you've been doing this for a while now. What changes have you seen though with use of social media, video phones, all that kind of stuff? Because back in the day, you hear those great stories of the missionaries who they would get their wives, they'd load up on the freight ship, and they'd say, "All right, we're selling off to Africa, and we'll never see any of you again," and they were gone.
Right.
It's not really that way with Zoom now. What changes have you seen with that?
Yeah, a lot of changes. Actually, some of the changes, I have to kind of try to catch up with because when we went out, basically we just wrote letters and connected with churches and individuals, families on the phone.
Okay.
Because, the cell phone was just coming in. There was no texting or it was probably texting, but, very little. And so all I did was basically write letters. Some of them were typed, photocopied, and then we sent those out. But as time has gone by, email just came right. I mean, it was right there. And so actually the changes that have happened is that your newsletter is the main way you connect with people.
Right.
Because people want to know what you're doing. And so we've been sending those out like once every 2 months, once every month. But then some people don't do email anymore. And so you have to kind of find a way of connecting with them. And some of them want to do Facebook. I don't do Facebook because I've just never been attracted to it.
More of a Twitter guy?
I don't do Twitter either.
Or X now. I dead named it.
I
do Telegram and WhatsApp.
he actually is wise.
Yes,
because all that social media stuff that we're posting this to, I'll just leave it there.
But anyway, so I do find that connecting with people through WhatsApp and Telegram is probably some of the things that are going to be coming down as the way we communicate with people. So
very good.
Yeah.
All right, so now we got two trains of thought we're going to roll down here. So I'll let you pick which one you want to go through next. First of all, we want to hear about your ministry and what you're doing.
Okay.
So we want to know details so you can highlight the successes. Second one is we love the fact that as a ministry partner, you are a church planter in the field. So we as a church, we can steal ideas from each other with stuff. Mm-hmm. So we want to talk about ministry things as well.
Okay.
So probably I would think, let's start off just tell us about the ministry, what you're doing, what gave you the call to Spain, and then we can go into the fun nuts and bolts of how you've been doing it, how you've been implementing it, and ideas that we can shamelessly steal from you here at our church.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, the call to Spain was a series of decisions that we had to make with my wife. We were, back in the early 2000s, we had an outreach in Greenville, South Carolina to internationals. I'm an English teacher. I teach English as a second language.
Okay.
And so we had a ministry there, and the ministry, the outreach, began to grow. We had like a big Bible study, a big community group, which was almost turning into a church. And so, but at the same time, with my background, I'm a native Spanish speaker. And we definitely had and do have a passion to reach people for Christ. And but as we looked at ourselves and looked at our passion, we saw that in spite of the fact that there is a great need in the U.S. here, and there is, we looked at other Spanish-speaking countries, and we decided definitely, the light is shining brighter in the States here with the gospel than in other countries. And of course, I had partially grown up in Spain, so know the culture, though I'm not a Spaniard. But in the end, we decided that, God was calling us to go over to Spain. And so that's the way our calling was.
Okay.
So ask me the next question.
Well,
right.
before that, now, did you have any family there? Did you have
Yes.
anyone? So, or were you just like, we're just going over there?
No, we did have a family there. I call myself a second generation missionary because my father went to Spain as a missionary, as a self-supported missionary when I was 10 years old.
Okay.
So I landed in Spain when I was 10. And so he basically went out to be a church planted also. And so I watched my father, I watched other missionaries, growing up there. And so I had learned the culture by being there from 10 to 20, basically. And so that kind of gave me the connection to Spain. So I was not necessarily going out. I was going, in a sense, without anybody else, but I knew people there. And I don't have cousins or, uncles there, but I do have I did have my parents. My dad passed away a year and a half ago. So
are you living in the same, are you currently serving near the area that you had for that time period?
Generally in the area.
Generally in the area?
Right.
Okay.
Not the same city, but
nearby. It's
nearby.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Nearby. Mm-hmm.
All right. So now tell us about the church.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously we've had you here for the weekend. We've heard some of the story. So it sounds like you started out doing like a children's outreach program, which grew into a church, and now you guys are focusing on other things as well. Walk us through the process and where you're at with things.
Not exactly. We landed there in 2007, and so for me, it was like rediscovering Spain.
Okay.
I had been here, over a period about 20 years. And for me, it was rediscovering Spain, but for my family, it was brand new. For my 3 kids and my wife, of course, we had been there, in Spain before with Amy, but she was basically going brand new. And so we were there. We took about 1 or 2 years to basically get acclimated to the culture, and so it was a time of getting acclimated to what Spain is. And then after basically 2 years, we targeted a town outside of the Barcelona area,
Okay.
The capital of this region. And I partnered with some families, Spanish families, and we went out there to basically begin a church plant. And so that's the way we began. We did, of course, begin with our kids and with other children and youth. And little by little, it began to kind of get traction and begin to grow. And so this has been a process of basically the last 13 years.
It sounds just like a church plant here in America, right? You get a kind of a core, you
Yes.
pray, you get established in your community first.
Yes.
And then as you do that, then you launch your church.
Yes.
And as you launch your church, there you go. But you had that core that you established
core,
first.
yes. We are a core group of 3 couples, and we began. Right.
Now, did you know them from your time over there before?
I
or
knew
no?
them. One of the couples, I knew them from the time before. Actually, one was my brother-in-law.
Okay.
But the other couple, I didn't know them. We just met this couple as we entered Spain and got acquainted with them. And so they also had a heart for church planting. And so we just kind of made this connection, right?
Now, what's the climate like? So here in America, church planting, church revitalization, those are kind of the cool lingo. Everyone's doing it. The cool kids are doing it type thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like in Spain?
Climate?
Like, here you hear, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to plant a church, or I'm going to help revitalize a church, or whatever. What kind of church community is there over there? What kind of Christian climate, let's call it church climate, is there in Spain?
Well, to start with, there are not too many churches. And so you kind of have to go out and try to connect with other churches. But then there is also the factor that not all the churches are on the same line theologically. So it's really more of a arid area in the sense of trying the possibility of connecting with other churches. That's on one side. But
now, theologically, are you talking more from a doctrinal standpoint or from a Trinity type Jesus?
From a doctrinal standpoint.
Okay.
You talk about there are different churches like, Pentecostal churches, Presbyterian churches, Reformed churches, dispensational, different lines of theology. So, but there are not too many churches. It's not like you can just go and find a church anywhere. So in that sense, you are, I think there is more of a willingness to connect with other churches in spite of our differences. But sometimes that's not easy either, And so, so that's kind of the climate. As far as the things people do, people in Spain like to be more, or because of the infrastructure and everything, the area where we are is a pretty metropolitan area. And so one of the big things or outreaches, and everybody does it, is going out and having camps and retreats. Because people like to go out into a camp setting to get away from the city. And if you can invite friends, bring them out to a retreat, to a youth camp, a family camp, that's a very good way of, and everybody does that or tries to do that.
I think that's a spiritual practice that goes way back to even some of our early church fathers, where we see them going. Jesus went into the wilderness. Let's start with him. You can see St. Augustine is famous for going into the wilderness.
Right.
And then even today, churches, we do that, right? We take people and we say, hey, let's get away from the hustle and bustle of life and let's spend some time focusing on God. I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's amazing that you get that opportunity to do it there too, and people enjoy it.
Yes.
So now let's get into some nuts and bolts stuff. This is stuff I'm a geek boy for, so this is totally an audience of one.
Okay.
Right here. So you started. Okay, how did you start? Did you go door to door knocking? Did you do flyers? Did you just, hey, we're having a church service on Sunday and let the music be their guide? What was your process of getting the church started to get those first few steps to go?
We did a little bit of everything, but we, I think, concentrated more on relationships.
Okay, how so?
All of us families, we had contacts, friends, and we invited those friends and tried to connect those friends and bring them over to expose them to what we were doing.
Okay.
And so, we brought, we knew friends in the neighborhood. We try to bring those to the to our fellowship, and everybody did. And as in the process of doing that, some of them put their faith in Christ, and so we began to disciple them. Meeting either for the youth in a youth setting or for adults. Sometimes what we did, one of the things that people like doing that, everywhere, is eating.
Oh, yeah.
So we went out and had, breakfast, invited friends, and had a nice big breakfast or a nice lunch, and bring them out. So that's one of the things that we did, and that builds relationships. So for ladies, sometimes my wife had a couple of all-nighters.
Oh, all-nighters. I hate all-nighters. It destroys
For
your sleep
ladies,
forever.
So, but, different ways like that. And then, of course, we did have also, we also did some street evangelism.
Ooh, now wait, how'd that go over?
Well,
How do you just went, you got a box and you stood up there and just started preaching?
No.
How do you start it?
No, what we did, and we've done that off and on, is we have this survey. Is basically, we call it's a religious survey.
All right.
And so we just go and meet people in the streets, just cold turkey, so to speak, and just ask them, would you mind taking a few minutes to answer a few questions? It is a religious service. We want to have a feel for what the community thinks.
Oh, then they start talking.
And so if
questions.
people are open to do that, well, that's a first step. If they say, I don't care about it, well, that's fine. But if they do, we let them know this is a survey for us. It's not going to be published. Mm-hmm. It's just for us to have a feel, as well as we want to engage people in talking about God. Talking about God in Spain is almost like a taboo. But when people agree to that, then we asked, simple like 5-7 questions that, and those questions are designed to bring the people to really talk about who Jesus is. And so we thank them, and some people just answer the questions and say, I'm done, bye. Okay, but then there's opportunity for conversation, and some people do want to talk about it, and so that there is the opportunity to be able to reach out to them.
Now, how do they respond when you approach them? Are they like, get away from me, or are people pretty receptive to it?
You have a bit of everything. Some people, they just plain say, get a job. Or some people go, well, sure. And they answer the questions. And there are others that do genuinely share their perspectives and struggles. And so, yeah, so a bit of everything.
Now, can you explain to us how they would say get a job in the Spaniard way? Like, is it very passionate? Is it very much like, get away from me?
Yes. Spaniards are very passionate. Very passionate. It wouldn't be the same expression of get a job.
Yeah.
But sometimes they'll,
All right, say it in Spanish. What would they tell you in Spanish?
Well, I wouldn't say it because it would be an expletive probably.
Oh.
We just want a taste of it. What would it be
a taste of it.
We don't know what you're saying.
Vete a freír espárragos.
Okay.
And they say that was very dispassionately. Would they say more passionately? Because I believe your wife said yesterday that her biggest adjustment with being in Spain was that how passionate the people were. And she'd always say,
oh, yeah.
Are they yelling at each other? Are they fighting?
Oh, yeah.
No. They're just having a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I can launch expressions here. Sometimes they'll say, pero tío, ¿tú de qué vas, hombre? ¿Qué dices? ¿De qué vas?
I think you just insulted your mother.
Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, one expression that in Spain is, vete a freír espárragos, is literally translated as go and fry asparagus.
Go fry asparagus?
I like asparagus, though.
That means basically get off my back.
Yeah.
Hey, go fry some asparagus, my man.
I'm going to start using that. Yeah, go fry some asparagus. All right.
When you want to get somebody off your back, it's like, go ahead and fry some asparagus.
And now on the ForYou Podcast, when we don't like where the discussion is going, go fry some asparagus.
Yeah,
all right?
yeah. Go do that. All right, so now that's your approach to start. Are these Are these approaches you still use? Are they? So how has it changed?
Once in a while we do that. I mean, we've also gone and passed out, tracts the old-fashioned way. We've also done is for Christmas, we've put together a little bit of our literature packet or calendars. We've done that also, where you go and pass calendars, and people like that. I mean, you have a calendar, and businesses like that. And people like to have a calendar, but on the calendar, of course, is the church's name and maybe a verse. And so that's another way we have done too. Also, we once in a while pass out like just a regular, it's not a business card, but it's a big card with isn't like an invitation to the church.
Okay.
And then, of course, the latest thing we've done is we put up a web page.
Okay.
And, I mean, we are in the digital age. And so if we don't do that, we're just really behind. So we put up a digital web page. And now people not only can have, know where we are, but they can go on and we've gotten ourselves on Google also. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, so now you mentioned something earlier, and all churches say this. We all say we're focused on discipleship.
Right.
For you, as you're discipling people who come into the church, is it do you have a structured process with it? Is it more informal? Do we go through a book together? What's your process of intentional discipleship when you get somebody new to the church?
Well, depending on where they're at, but the process that we go through is, we have a church doctrinal statement, and then we also have a church teaching statement.
Okay, explain the difference.
The difference is, to be part of the church, we have a document with the main foundational beliefs that we consider that everybody that is a true born-again Christian is going to believe.
Okay.
Those are the main ones. It's a fewer list of doctrine statement. But a teaching statement is, every church has different distinctives, different, fuller teaching. And so that teaching statement, it's a fuller document, more complete, more thorough, where people know what we are teaching in this church,
Okay.
So that's what we put out there. And so we use that for new comers to just go ahead and go over that. For people that come and that are wanting to learn about our church, or new believers in Christ, and we just go ahead and use that as a way of acquainting them with the church as well as teaching them the basic,
So now I'm assuming you have, what's your week look like? So for example, like here in America, me growing up, it was Sunday morning, you'd have Sunday school, Sunday service, come back at night, Wednesday night prayer meeting. Now it's changed more to just like Sunday morning service and then, programming throughout the week.
Right.
What's your flow of week look like?
Well, our flow weeks, we have church service that goes from 11 to basically 1.
2 hours?
Yes. Actually, it's more like 1 or 2 or 3 hours sometimes it goes.
3 hours.
My mom went to a church recently. She was on a trip with some friends, and she got back and she's like, man, you wouldn't believe it. Church was out in 50 minutes. I go, yeah, that's typical American. Try to keep it to it. And I sometimes will preach for 50 minutes, but anyways.
Yeah.
2 to 3 hours.
2 or 3 hours.
So you're preaching the whole time?
No. I give opportunity to other people too. I preach mainly because, I'm the one leading. I do preach about 3 times per month. And then I give up 1 month. I give opportunity to some of the men in the church to be able to practice their gifts and come in. And that's part of our discipleship too, because during the week I get together with them.
Okay.
Too.
I like that.
So that's what... That's what, as far as the Sunday is concerned. Okay. We do have once a month, we have a church meal. And so when the church meal comes in, then we can be there from 11 all the way to 5 in the evening. Because we have, schedules are different in Spain. We eat basically about 2 to 3 in the afternoon. But that's like the noon meal in Spain. And so we have a full service, 11 to 1 to 1:30, and then get ready for the meal. And then we have a meal at noon. It's a full meal. There are different nationalities in the church, so everybody pitches in with their particular dishes, and we have just a time to just sit down, be still. We share. So by the time it's done, it's like about 4 or 5 in the evening for those times that we have a church meal.
Okay.
So that's on Sundays. Then we have, of course, we have a midweek prayer meeting. And again, you have to think we are about 20 plus people in the church.
Okay, so
it's
20.
a small church. But we do have that time because the schedules in Spain are different too. Most people finish their work day at about 8 in the evening.
Really? What time do they start?
They'll start 9,
Okay.
8, depending on the job.
All right. So they work from 8 in the morning until 8 at night.
Yes. Many do that. And so you don't have a lot of opportunities to connect with them during the week. And so depending on the year, we always pick a day in the week that is going to be best for everybody to have a prayer time. So sometimes we've done prayer meeting on Tuesdays, sometimes on Thursdays, and sometimes on Wednesdays.
Okay.
And so on Wednesdays, what we usually do is we have the children's program, and we have that exactly at 5:15 in the evening. Why? Because kids get out of school at 5. And so right after they got out of school, we basically, accommodate that schedule so they can just come to our program. And we have a 1-hour children's Bible club where we have games and fan activities and then teach them also the word. We have a snack. And so that's what we do too on Wednesdays. And then also during the week, I usually meet with the men in the church, and that varies. Sometimes I meet, for lunch at a coffee shop, or I do have a permanent spot on Saturdays for discipleship for the men that want to come for this more in-depth study in the Word.
So kind of like we have here the Bible Institute here at the church.
Yes.
People go through it. So that you kind of view that as a Saturday morning thing for some of the men?
Right. And then once a month, we also get all the men in the church to come over to my home for a fun meal.
Okay.
And just more of informal discipleship where we read a book and then comment on the book. And so that's a way of building also the men.
Very good.
Then Amy, of course, has also the ladies, and she does that once a month, where the ladies get together on Saturdays usually for about 3 hours.
Okay.
2-3 hours, where they have devotional and, they also eat, have a meal. And so those are the main activities that the church has, right?
Okay.
All right, so Dan, we're kind of hearing a little bit about Spaniard culture, what it's like in your church, kind of some of those things. But really, what are some of the, let's start with, what are some of the highlights? Like, what are some of the things your family, you have enjoyed the most about just being in Spain?
Oh, okay. Well, Spain has a very mild climate where, at least the area where we are, winters are really mild. Temperatures are like maybe 32 degrees, the coldest. And so as a family, we've enjoyed going out to these coastal towns on the Mediterranean, towns that we really like. And so we just go out there almost any time of the year for like a weekend. And we just love to roam around the town sometimes, or go out on the beach and sightseeing. We just love doing that as a family. And so that's one of the things we've enjoyed a lot.
Yeah,
of course, we enjoy also the food. The food is great.
All right. Well, all right. What's your favorite meal? I mean, what's
My favorite.
because there's always stereotypes of food in other countries and stuff. What do you got? Tell Tell us what you got. What's your favorite thing?
Well, my favorite meal really is a paella.
A paella?
Paella.
Okay.
Paella is a typical Spanish dish. It has seafood in it. It has clams. It has shrimp. You can also add chicken. It has yellow rice, and you can add peppers and all kinds of good. You can add artichokes too. It's all kind of like a conglomeration of all these things, and it's really, really delicious.
It's like jambalaya, it sounds like almost. But not jambalaya, the Spanish version of jambalaya.
Yeah. There we go.
Now, what have been some of the challenges? Like, what have been some of the hardest things about being in Spain?
Hardest things of being in Spain, well, for one is it's very hard when you are trying to reach out people and communicate, the message of God and then see no results. And you do this, and all of a sudden, there's nothing happening, and so that can be very discouraging. And when you're out there and you don't have hardly anybody with you, then those times can be really, can be discouraging. Also, some of the hard things, one of the hard things too, is to be able to function in the culture when the culture of Spain is not your own culture. Now, as I mentioned before, I grew up there from 10 to 20, so I have learned, the ways and the cultural ways of Spain. But for my wife and my kids, that was learning, especially for my wife. There are ways in which people communicate in a culture that you have not learned, and that can come across as being sometimes mean, or sometimes it can mean it can come across like being indifferent, or it can come across like people are mocking you. And if you don't know those things, then you are sort of like lost. Mm-hmm. And those things can be hard, to learn. Mm-hmm. And so those first years for Amy, it was difficult. It was hard. Or I had to coach her also. And it was hard for my kids too, because they were like in the middle of this country where they just, so to speak, didn't fit. And so those first years, I would say first 3 to 5 years, it was a hard thing.
It's interesting because I think of some of the, let's say, big figures in church history. Mm-hmm. So St. John of the Cross is one that I always look to, and he wrote The Dark Night of the Soul. You have Mother Teresa in her memoirs that come up where she felt God's call to go to Calcutta. Mm-hmm. She's in Calcutta, and if you read her diary, it's just all about how she feels God's been so distant in her life, yet here she's doing all these amazing works in the name of God, and you see this, and you can go through church history, and it seems like people who have really taken up the call to go and to serve the Lord go with this fire, this vigor, and this passion, and their love for the Lord doesn't change. But there's this season where it seems like sometimes it's frustrating. Like, God, where are you in the midst of this? And I'm kind of hearing that a little bit.
Yes.
And I almost want to encourage you that if you look throughout the church history and church fathers, they all experience the same type of thing, because the reality is we'd love everyone to follow Jesus. I mean, that would be amazing. We also often, there's a book Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote called The Cost of Discipleship. I think we almost need a book called The Cost of Undiscipleship, or not following Jesus, because there's a cost to both. And most people, when they weigh the cost, do a cost analysis. In our world, the sad reality is they look and they say the cost of following Jesus is too much for me, so I'm going to choose the cost of not following him, which to me is mind-blowing why you would choose that way. But it's the reality, right? And so as much as we love everyone to be saved, it's just how it tends to be. And so I just want to encourage you to keep pressing on because you're not alone in feeling that way at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I enjoyed meeting your wife. Your wife is awesome. Yesterday, I loved it yesterday. We had our family dinner, and she's up there, and you're talking about the stuff you do, and she talks about the stuff she does. And she's just like, hey, here's my job. I take care of my husband. I look after my kids. I support them. I'm their number one rock. That's my role, and I dominate at it. I was like, all right, way to go, my lady.
Well, believe me, I would not be able to be doing what I'm doing without Amy. You know, I mean, it's that way.
Very good.
It's that way. And I'm blessed to have Amy as my wife. Just could not do that without her.
Now, how long have you guys been married?
We've been married 33 years.
Wow, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Yes, amazing. I can't believe it's been that long, but it's been that long and we've enjoyed it. Yes.
I always say that's a testament to the faith journey, where when you can show a marriage that you're faithful to one another, where you've been together with one another, where you've supported one another, and you've done it for 33 years, that's something that most people can't say they've achieved. So that's awesome.
Well, it's been by God's grace too.
Absolutely.
Because we all have our moments, but we are in love. I love my wife. We're in love. We love each other, definitely.
Yes. The one thing we did appreciate was the song that you sang yesterday with your wife up there in front of the group. The take home most of us took was looking at Robert and his wife like, how come you guys don't do stuff like this?
Because everyone's ears would bleed.
The look on her face when I looked at his wife was like, she's like...
They wouldn't bleed because of her voice. They'd bleed because of mine.
Very good. All right, so now how much longer are you guys in the States for?
We are until sometime in July.
Sometime in July, then you're going back?
And then we're going back to Spain.
Very good. All right, so now you're going back, you're refreshed, you're recharged, obviously because you were here with us for a few days. So, I mean, this is obviously the highlight of your furlough.
Okay.
All right, so when you go back, what are your goals? What are you excited about? You're going to hit the ground running, doing what?
Well, there are a lot of things that we want to do, but one of the goals I have is to be able to disciple some key men that I have been discipling, but to be able to disciple them so that they can take ownership and leadership of the church.
Very good. All right, now brag on these guys. Tell us about these guys.
Let me tell you about one.
Because if they see this podcast, because you know we have a few people who listen to us.
Okay.
They'll probably hear this.
Okay. There's a young guy in our church. I've seen him, known him since he was a teenager when his family started coming. And he has, he's just a neat guy because, he went from basically having no interest in God. I mean, he would come to the church. Basically, his family just dragged him. And he had no interest. You could see it in his face. It was like nothing. Then from there, he came to one of the retreats, the youth retreats he had. And during that time, his eyes were open. You could tell he was like, it was actually my father-in-law who came from the States and had, led the spiritual part of the retreat and brought a series of, messages and so on. And so he left. I continued the theme of the retreat. And it wasn't very long until he truly put his faith in Christ. And you could tell his life changed. His priorities, his way, just everything. And so I've seen him change over the years, and there was a time it's like, you're ready to step up and begin teaching. So he's been teaching, he's been preaching. He has a big heart for, reaching out. And so I'm really looking forward to further training him and helping him achieve what God has prepared him for. And so that's one of the big goals I have. There are other men in the church that I'm looking forward to getting together and exploring that. What God has as far as for the leadership of the church. Then one of the big goals I have is to also, if God leads, introduce this potential new missionary couple that is connecting with us. This is a young couple from the States that seems like they want to go and begin to do church planting, but they want to enter Spain through a church, and they are looking at us. And so I'm looking forward to be able to connect with them. And of course, the next goal I have is also I want to get on the digital age.
Okay.
Because I am realizing that if you're not on the digital age, you're missing the boat. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I want to. I'm trying to get church web revamped and get resources for the church, and then further, of course, do the outreach out that we have in the town up north from us. So
good.
So those are the main goals.
A lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So now we always want to get to know our ministry partners, especially our missionaries, because again, we only get to see you every once in a while. So I'm going to ask you some basic questions. We used to have a thing called rapid fire where we'd ask questions.
Okay.
I'll just ask you some of the questions.
Okay.
The funny part was it's not really rapid fire because we asked you the questions. Sure. But just give us the answer as much as you want. That way we can kind of get to know you as a person.
Okay.
All right. So here we go. Question number 1. What is your favorite beverage?
Oh.
Favorite beverage?
My favorite beverage is basically Colacao.
Colacao?
Yes.
What is Colacao?
Colacao is like it's a chocolate powder drink in Spain.
Okay.
And you can add that to either hot or cold.
Okay.
You know, the summertime, I just get a full spoons of Colacao into cold milk, really cold milk, and I love that.
Very good.
In the wintertime, basically, you have like hot chocolate. It's not, the type of hot chocolate, but that's my favorite drink.
Very good. All right, next question. What is your, because you're in Spain, this is going to sound really weird. What is your favorite English translation of the Bible?
English
translation. And then you can tell us what you have in Spain. That's something we never think of, like what Bible
my
do you use
favorite English translation of the Bible is the New King James Version.
Ooh, the New King James. All right.
Because, I don't have that hang up of Old King James, but, and granted, growing up in the English world,
Yep.
I've always used that one. And so I feel really comfortable with it. They're not all the these and thous are not there, which makes it more personal. And so I use that. But lately I've been using also the ESV.
ESV? Very good. What do you preach from in Spain?
Oh, in Spain we preach from what is it's called Reina Valera 60. Is the most standard version in Spain. There are not as many versions of the Bible in Spain, but we use that one, which is kind of like a middle of the road.
Very good.
Yes.
All right. Next one up. What is your favorite movie or television show to watch to relax? Because missionaries are allowed to have fun.
Yeah. Well, there are several, but as a family, we just love Fiddler on the Roof.
Fiddler on the Roof.
We just love that. We can watch that. We've watched it probably 10 times. And we watch that. With my son, I love watching Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. All right. The new ones or the ones from the 2000s?
The ones more like from the 2000s. We watched the latest one and I was disappointed.
Oh, really?
Because I felt like they were just tearing Spider-Man apart.
Gotcha.
They got like 1,000 Spider-Mans. It's like, man, there's only one Spider-Man.
Oh, you haven't embraced the full multiverse of things. You got to embrace the multiverse.
I'm probably getting behind the times now.
All right, so here's the next one for you. What is the song that you're listening to on loop? Or if you're not into music, what is your favorite podcast to listen to right now?
My favorite podcast?
Yeah, what's your favorite podcast?
Well, in the last couple of years, I've come across this podcast that I listen to in Spain since now digital is everywhere. It's The Briefing by Albert Mohler.
The Briefing by Albert Mohler, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like about it?
I like about it that it's very informative. This guy, he is a brain. He can talk about all kinds of different subjects, and I don't know if he does it impromptu or he must do his research, but he's very knowledgeable on day-to-day issues, and he gives a pretty good perspective on from a biblical point.
Yeah.
And so I enjoy listening to his podcast too.
Very good. All right, so here's another one. Other than Batman, because Batman is everyone's favorite superhero, who is your favorite superhero? Superhero. Other than Batman, because Batman is everyone's favorite. You mentioned Spider-Man earlier. Is she your favorite, or you like one of the other ones more?
No, my favorite is Superman.
Superman.
Very
good. All right. All right, here's the last one. This one's the trickiest. Who wrote the book of Hebrews?
Well, I believe...
All right, let's hear it.
...that Paul wrote it.
Ooh, why do you believe Paul wrote it? We've asked this to different people. I'm always curious the answers we get.
I know people talk about, of course, style and true. The book of Romans, it doesn't have the same style. But I believe that, if you look at the book of Romans, there is such a treatise and such depth of doctrinal theology. And if you put the book of Hebrews next to it, there is equal depth. And I can't think of anybody else writing the book of Romans other than Paul. Then I also think maybe Barnabas wrote it.
Ooh, Barnabas. All right. You're the first person to mention Barnabas. We've had Apollos. We've had some others.
Yeah.
You're the first person to do Barnabas.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that may be my second guess, but
there's no wrong answer.
There's no wrong answer.
I believe it was intended so that we would be able to ask this question and get a million different answers.
I know, we're all going to have all right. Lord, it's great to see you. All right. Who wrote Hebrews? We got to know these things.
I would even love to see some of you put in your comments who you think wrote Hebrews.
But you got to give a reason. All right. So I guess, all right, if you were, hold on, how do I want to phrase it? What's your most fun book of the Bible or topic to preach through?
Oh.
Like you enjoy it. Like this is my jam. Like I love going through this.
I really like
Old Testament guy, New Testament guy?
I'm both.
Okay.
But I really enjoy preaching through the book of Jonah.
Jonah. All right. What reason?
Well, Jonah is an amazing book because I see myself in it. I see other people in it. It's like, I think Jonah was written to show us our own heart. Because Jonah didn't want to do what God wanted him to do. And in the end, at times when I've looked at myself, it's like, Lord, that's me. I mean, I know I need to do this and I don't want to do this. And why? Because I'm selfish. God told Jonah to do something, to reach people, to go there. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. I hate these Ninevites. And in the day and age where we live, I enjoy preaching from that because it brings out the true heart, my true heart when I'm away from God. And then it shows me the heart that God wants us to have. He wants us to have a heart of compassionate. And I find that most of us, or all of us, in our own selfishness, we're not compassionate. We have prejudices, we have hang-ups, and God doesn't have hang-ups. And Jonah was a guy full of hang-ups.
No, technically,
for a good reason, but...
So Jonah got on the boat, and I believe he was sailing to Spain, wasn't he?
He surely was.
And you're on you're near the Mediterranean Sea, correct?
Yes.
So it's possible you could actually be ministering near the area where Jonah was trying to get to.
Yes, where he was trying to flee from God. Right.
That's an odd connection we have there, isn't it?
He was trying to run away from God to go to Tarsus. And if you, there's a town near about an hour and a half from us is called Tarragona. And I'm not a historian, but that whole coast, people say that was probably Tarshish, right? So he was trying to, and I'm there.
All right, so you're doing the work Jonah would have done if he'd been successful in his disobedience.
Yeah, but he was running away from God.
He's kind of, we don't
Paul said, when I go to Spain, so
Paul wanted to get to Spain?
Yeah, he wanted to get to Spain.
Because end of the world.
So maybe I'm finishing off Paul's job.
Look at that. What a glorious, glorious full circle moment. Very good. All right, Robert, any final thoughts from you as we're wrapping things up here?
No, just putting those pieces together, all I can keep thinking is God's still building his kingdom.
Yes, he is.
And I just pray that the people of Spain will be blessed by your ministry and how God is using you and your family.
Thank you.
And I pray that we would see in a couple years just a revival happening in Spain.
Amen.
I believe there's going to be a great revival happening in this world.
Mm-hmm.
I believe God is shaking things up right now. I think people are asking a lot of questions of why are the things that we thought would work not working. And I think the church is on the brink of something amazing, and I just thank you for being on the forefront of that. So
thank you.
Yeah.